Killa Killa podcast. KillaKillaOfficial.com.
This is the sound of the Killa Kela beatbox body part sample pack. Over 120 loops, samples, and one-shots for your music production. Exclusively on Splice.
Studio pain.
Yeah. Right, let's kick this off.
Sick.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Killa Kela podcast, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce my guest for this session. I mean, where to begin? Nil, +1, dynamic duo, pro servers, Scratch Perverts, Jackbeats, DJ +1. It's the man himself.
What up?
It's awesome, dude. I mean, I've tried to find, I've scoured the internet online to try and find an interview with you, and it's like, it's a total touch, man.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it has, huh?
No, thank you, man. It's a massive pleasure and an honor, man. You know?
Welcome to the humble abode. It's the first time we've been, right?
We've just been discussing it. It feels productive, man.
Yeah,
We're liking it.
Yeah. It's calamity. It's turnaround.
Nah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good, man. It has an energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you're local to the area as well, which means we're always bumping into each other.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, literally. And your little dog, man.
Yeah.
Little dog in there.
Oh, Pazoo.
Yeah,
Pazoo Grande, aka the world's smallest Jack Russell.
Yeah, he's a killer.
Yeah, he's crazy. Well, he thinks he is, but he's not. He hears like a firework and he's like dead. So yeah.
And your studio's not too far.
Yeah. I'm literally like sort of NW6, like sort of locked in these days. Not going anywhere for probably the rest of my days.
It's mad to think, because when we first started, and you know, just for point of reference, you know, we go back from like 18 or 19. From when we were really young. Yeah. And to think that, you know, you came down from Edinburgh, right?
Yeah.
And we've moved with the times and carried on working through the music landscape.
Met you the first time actually you came to Edinburgh with Vadim, and you guys did Scratch. I would have been like 17, I think.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Like, it was probably the year before I moved down.
Yeah.
And I remember like classic Scottish style, like as soon as you finished beatboxing, I thought it was like unbelievable. I sort of like kind of like accosted you, or probably more like jumped on you and tried to make you drink, and you were like, no, I'll just have a Red Bull. Okay. And I was like, sure, man, that's all you need. And I think I went and got your Red Bull and was like, well, if that's what he wants, you know. It was just like, this dude, like, we just thought you were fucking crazy good. Yeah,
dude, like, but I think, you know, much appreciated, and it's reciprocated, because I don't think you realised, but at the time, you guys, what was the name of the dude that you did the dynamic duo mixtape?
Brian. Yeah, DJ Extra.
You did that mixtape, man, and it was down here that we checked it out.
Yeah.
And we were like, whoa, this guy, his scratching is like insane, and the mixes are wicked. Like, and then you came down. I remember it being a very specific time in Deal Real.
I remember I walked
scratching your back, going.
Yeah, we hung out. We walked around like Soho with a couple of your dudes from like the 360 guys that you were like crew with at the time. I remember being like, kind of made it. I'm like hanging out with Kela, walking around Soho. I'm in like Deal Real.
Oh, dude, those are the days.
Yeah. It's crazy though, man. Like I think at the time it's like, you know, when you look back and you're just trying your hardest to sort of make your way, but you're not trying to do it for any other reason than you just love doing it. And I remember like, you know, some of the efforts that we went to like now are a little bit ridiculous. Like, you know, that we did an hour-long mixtape, the one you're talking about, me and Brian, and it was all done like on stop-start. Like, so we just had like an Iowa tape deck, and you would do one bit. So you do like a minute-long routine, and you stop it. And we figured out just how long you had when you pressed like play and record before there was a tiny little like 1 second delay before it started to record. So we figured out how you would then stop at the end of that routine and in time come back in with the next one.
That's crazy.
So we had no margin for error, and B, like you had like one take.
Yeah.
And it was like crazy, man. And it took us like longer than it takes to do an album, to do this stupid mixtape which I could never listen to again in my life. It would be such a headache.
After a while, it's like, I've had enough of this one.
But it was like everything just at the time. And then I remember like Craig at Bongo was like, oh, we'll sell some for you. And then he sold out, and we were like, really? I think I got a check in the post for like £81 or something for like the ones they sold. And I was like,
yeah.
like, fell
Drinks
over.
on me, lads.
Oh
you
my
know?
God.
Yeah.
And it was just like, you know, like crazy stuff, man. Like the smallest things really were like, you know, massive. And it's like, you know what? It was like we were all doing that at the same time. So the history is it's pretty deep, man.
It's vast.
Yeah.
And when you talk about extremes, I think there's equal extremes in the promotion and the way we went about. Like you say, it's like as soon as you get a lead, like, oh, you know, they sold like 80, 100 copies down at Bongos. Then come the stickers, and then comes the post, you know, the stickering around the place. And you forget, like, back in the day, it's like, I know you did, and I certainly do. We went on a rampage with that shit.
Yeah, man, like, you couldn't move in London transport for seeing a Killa sticker, man.
Dude, I mean, you know, not want to incriminate myself. There was actually a time... But there was actually a time, right, when I was outside Scala and they were building across the road. They had like this whole like scaffolding set up with these big boards, and it went literally right round the island that created the roundabout.
Yeah, I remember.
And I just had this roll of stickers, and I'm like, hey, you know what I'm going to do? That ended, I'm going to go right way around. So I started and go bang, bang, bang. And I'm going round, and going round, and round. And I must have been like 3 stickers short of doing the whole wall of the island. And I get a tap on the shoulder, and it's like these 2 feds. And I'm like, and they're like, what are you doing? And I was like, okay, it's fair cop. Okay, you caught me, kind of thing. And all of a sudden, one of the dude's radios went off, and something was going on in the corner, and they just darted and left me.
Damn.
And I'm like, whoa, I'm out. I'm out, you know.
Back to Crawley.
Yeah, but straight back to Crawley. Boom. But, you know, good days. All underage, by the way.
Yeah. All fine.
Yeah, all fine. All right. Let the past be the past, bro. But yeah, so let's move it forward, man.
Yeah.
Like, so from that point of coming down from Edinburgh, Dynamic Duo happened. You then started getting into some pretty serious competitions.
Yeah.
And you started working alongside the Scratch Perverts, which then became a formidable like combination of DJs.
Yeah. With
you, Prime Cuts, and Tony Vegas at the helm.
Yeah, I guess in the end, yeah. That was a mad sort of journey, really, man. Because essentially, you know, I kind of knew Tony first. Him and Harry came up to Edinburgh, and I think at the time I would have been 16, and I think Harry would have been 15. I think it was a year between us. And Tony was championing Harry like he does, and because of the age being so close and young people, you know, we're still a little bit younger than, you know, most DJs were at the time. Yeah. Even now, I think that 15, 16 is quite young to be doing that sort of thing, but it certainly was then. And, you know, the local friends of ours, the older guys, basically started winding them up, I think, at the sound checks, and these 2 kids and come battle, you know, this sort of stuff, which we didn't. Yeah. It sort of turned up, and it was like
in a real kind of Scottish.
Yeah, kind of there's these kids, man. They're gonna come, man. They're gonna come and like show you, and it's like, oh, don't do that, man. Like, we just want to meet these guys and be friends.
Because if you know Neil, he's like the furthest person from that. He's got an athleticism to die for. He'll combat you, but he will never.
No,
that sort of thing.
You know, I think to scratching videos back in the day and stuff, I used to get a bit into like shaved head and stuff. Maybe gave off the wrong impression, but I was never that guy. And it's like, you know, anyway, we cut a very long story short. We all met up in a very hip hop way. We all just sort of had a scratch back to back, and that's like, you know, that's the essence of hip hop, really. And we all kind of were like, oh man, like we were blown away by those guys, and they had like a lot of respect for us, and we all stayed in touch. And became kind of friendly. Used to come. Me and Brian came down, visit Harry and stuff. I used to really stay in touch with Tony and compare notes, and used to play each other like, you know, routines we were building for the competitions down the phone to each other. And I'd come down and practice with him. My aunt lived in Hammersmith, so I used to come down quite often.
That's right.
And I was at the time trying to get an art school down here, so I was down for interviews and stuff. And just right place at the right time. Tony was like building and was like a kind of, you know, he stays out of the limelight these days, but back then he was like a force to be reckoned with. Dude, he was like steamrolling through
Hurricane Vegas, man.
Yeah,
on every level.
Yeah, I mean, dude was like a kind of, he's sort of becoming this kind of like a sort of almost like celebrity status type person in like the scene, you know. It's like
the Gallagher of turntables.
Yeah. I think they got like I can't remember what year it was, but it's before I was involved. But I think the Face magazine, which was like the Bible at the time, voted them like the #1 rock group in the country that year or something. And
Just insane. I mean,
you know, him and Joe
to die for.
pretty much really won that crown. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and you know that spirit, especially when you're young, the spirit of people like that really, it's exciting. You know,
it's rock and roll.
It is rock and roll.
It is inspiring.
And it was like, man, this is really cool. Like there's all this stuff going on with this way beyond just, you know, scratching in a way. And I didn't really comprehend anything more to it than that. I just liked doing what we did, and it was my way of making music. You know, I didn't come from a broke family. I didn't come from a lot of money. So like my turntables were like what I had, you know, and like that was kind of my everything. And it was sort of like that, you know, I wasn't going to be, you know, asking for like an MPC that Christmas and getting one, you know what I mean? So it's like that's what I did, and I was very pleased with that. And it's kind of, you know, I was just like, you know, watching this whole thing sort of just expanding from that, just those turntables. I was like, people are building like kind of businesses out of this almost. It's like, is this possible?
That's right. And not to be taking it lightly, you took that and you ran with it, and you went on to, how many titles did you win? You won DMC World?
Yeah, I won like, I basically, I kind of like, I came through, I think in 2000, I kind of got the hype that I'd win the UK one, because I come runner up the year before, and Tony had sort of said, oh, you know, he thought I should have won, which was a gift and a curse in a way. Massive gift and a huge compliment, but kind of a little bit of a curse for the year after, because I probably wasn't quite ready. You know, I think in an artistic perspective, I guess I can probably say that I've been making music as a career for like 22 years now. But it's like,
you have.
You know, it's like an artistic perspective, I can sort of trace like when it's going good and when it's not. And I know now, like in retrospect, like 2000, when it was around DMC time, my ideas and my ambition was like here, my ideas were here, but I hadn't thought it through to be able to pull it off. And I made mistakes and it didn't work out. I missed the thing rightly won that year. I came runner up again. And I realized my mistakes after that. And then I got invited to do the Vestax World Final, which was like an invite only. You don't really do heats or anything, you just turn up.
I remember this,
out in Japan, which was only like about 4 or 5 months later. But I just learned what not to do, and then went and did that, and then I went up against some pretty stiff competition like P-Trix and Infamous, and I won that one. And I was like, I couldn't really get my head around it. I showed a few people my routines, and I could tell from their reactions, like they were like, oh shit,
you coming like that?
And I was like, oh really? Okay. Like I don't think of myself as like an egotistical person. Like I just go with my gut. So I was like, my gut's telling me it's good, but when you see reactions, it's where you're like, oh, all right. And then I won it, and I was like, and then like 6 months later, like won the DMC, and that was kind of it for me, because I didn't want to really, I got all the goals that I wanted. I didn't want to be like, or try to be like a craze type character, because I didn't feel I was really, you know, there's people put on this planet to take those roles
and do what they do,
and I'm not one of them, you know. I'd love to be. I'm not Cuba or Craze. They're like demigods. I'm like the dude that came with some ideas and had his moment there, you know, and that was fine for me.
I know what you're saying. I agree.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if I mentioned this on a previous podcast, but I definitely see my contribution to beatboxing as part of a bigger organism.
Yeah,
it's like you just you add something. It doesn't mean you can't not be in it, but it's like you just add to it rather than try and immerse and you know, let it move and do its thing. Yeah, and like you say, it's. I mean, when you get to this point after the wins and the achievements that you've hit your mark, where do you go from there? Like in your head, it's like, is there a sense of, oh,
yeah, definitely, man. I mean, I was like 20 at that point, and I was like, I think at 20 you're like, like given, I mean, it seems ridiculous now because the world's so different, but back then winning the DMC was enough to be like, I'm kind of made for a while here. Like I've got a career probably. I would, in my head, I was pretty realistic. I was like, I probably can, you know, tour off the back of this for like 4 or 5 years or something. And at 20, that feels like the rest of your life. You know, so I was like, cool. And then exactly what you're asking sort of hit. It was like, well, what did I do? Like
what now?
and the reality of that was like, it was kind of written already, because in that time of starting to get some success and touring, you used to get a lot of gigs, even if you were winning like UK heats at DMC, even like Scottish one. You know, you would tour a lot. There was a massive club culture there, which isn't quite the same anymore. So it's like, you know, we were
like
all
a circuit, isn't it?
There was. We were all eating quite nicely off it, you know. So I had by that point bought my MPC and a few synthesizers and all that, and that was starting to take hold of me. Like, you know, I can make music like properly. Not that doing it with turntables wasn't, but I actually I had ambitions to go much further, but I had a lot to learn. So, you know, I think it sort of moved on very quickly to just sitting in front of a sampler and having those ambitions and maybe not quite having the fruits of them for a while, you know. So it was up and down. Yeah, like there was days where it was the most exciting time, and there's days of like massive frustration, you know.
Yeah, I bet.
And the thing was, like, I grew up on like skateboarding, like, and it teaches you, like, as does hip hop in general, if you're into like the craft of it, it teaches you like persistence.
Yeah.
And
I like that.
And that's what, like, you know, you keep failing, you keep trying. So I was like, well, you know, I'm not like some gifted dude here, but I do know where I want to get, and with hard work, I'll get there. Because that's all. That's it's been the story of any success I've ever had in life, and that's sort of, I just kept at it. And, you know, and relatively speaking, it sort of worked out quite well, like slowly but surely.
Yeah.
But
it
yeah,
certainly has.
Yeah, I mean, later on in that decade, it started to really come to fruition by making house music, which at the beginning was like a bit different. But you know, I've worked on like hip hop tracks. I worked with, like, you know, I got in the studio with some good people. I worked, like, produced a track for like Most Def and Black Thought, like heroes, you know, like that you can say now and it still stands up. And
yeah, absolutely.
You know, UK dudes. I wasn't like a UK hip hop producer like a Harry Love type like that, but I worked for like Dynamite MC quite a lot, and Foreign Beggars guys and people like that. You know, I sort of just kind of hustled along, man.
It's interesting, actually. There was you stayed in your lane, and that was what was really interesting at that time. It was almost like you didn't want to commit. This is in retrospect, looking at it, you didn't. I think you were testing, and I think there was always something kindling, but it was only when the whole social presence happened with this new project you were doing. Yeah. That this Jackbeats, that's when it really felt like, hey, wait a minute, you know, you're garnering fans that are nothing to do with any scene that you've been plugging into. All of a sudden, this whole fidget sound, this whole house thing but it's like online. Yeah. And it was all blog related. Yeah. And I just remember sitting there with you, and I think it was in Stoke Newington. Yeah, I remember. I know what you're about to say. How? How? You're like, who's doing your PR? I'm like,
bro, like, no one is. Yeah. And the thing was as well, like, I think quite early on, we started to realise, me and Ben, who did Jackbeats with, I think we realised that we had no control over the social presence. It was doing its own thing. It had its own steam, but other people doing it for us. So rather than fuel it, like, we just made our MySpace look kind of pretty, put up the odd video of someone playing one of our tunes, which genuinely we would put up because we were in disbelief that they were playing them. Yeah, yeah. And I think the biog, like, read on there for like, I don't know, pretty much the entire time MySpace was there anyway. It was just like, I think our bio was something like, Jackbeats is Neil and Ben, we make music and it sounds like this, which is, it sounds like pretentious and stupid, but it's like, the point was that we had nothing else to write. It wasn't trying to be anything. It was just like, we were just like it literally was
where to go, man. It's just like let it fly.
Yeah. We just left it, and then it was like, well, all right, let's just leave it, you know, like, because
there's the other thing as well is and I'm not sure how many people know of this, but you're also you're the artist behind the artwork, and right, it's like you can never underestimate the input that you put in, that you have on things, and the way, like, you've got a very brand conscious mindset, haven't you?
I always, like, I wanted to do design for years. I went to like St. Martin's to do that and left because of the Scratch Perverts, but that was always like a real big thing for me.
That was your thing. I always used to, right, so I got this tattoo, right, and there was always these curls And I know I ripped them off you. I know it was came from you because we were hanging out so much together. And I remember, like, you with the curls. You always had the curl thing going.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want the fucking curl thing. You know,
I was trying to rip off Barry McGee probably. But yeah, badly. But anyway,
dude,
yeah.
like-
Oh, big up, man.
Yeah,
I never
man.
knew that.
Oh yeah, totally. I ripped off your curls all the time, man. But yeah, it came to fruition in the same way. It was like all of a sudden you see the Jackbeats swamp look.
Yeah.
And it's like, now when you look at how many people actually did that,
Yeah.
there's a lot of ripping off going, even now to a degree.
Yeah, it was all, the thing was, it was just all like loosely based on like old skate art and stuff. And the thing was, like, when we kind of kicked off doing like the tracks and MySpace became a thing, we're like, well, we need like a logo to go up. And like, it was, I mean, I'd say like 95% of the success of that particular project, like Jackbeats, is really like timing and stars aligning, you know? Like, we got better, like, and hit we probably, like any project, you sort of hit an apex where it's like, that's as good as it's probably, I don't want to say gonna get, because it's still going, but you know, where it really was hitting quite a lot of switches for people and working. But like at the beginning, to kick it off, it was like, you know, right, here's the music, we're making music, it's sounding like this, and it's working together, cool. Like, all right, we need a logo, cool, I'll draw some. And like, I think I drew like 3 based on, you know, that type of theme. And like, I took it down like to my friend Al, Mysterious Al, like so he
Al. Big up
digitized it for me.
Mysterious Al.
Yeah, exactly, big up. Like, he like digitized it for me, and then like we just bunged it up, and then yeah, like you say, man, like it, for whatever reason, people just went with it, and you're like, okay, like that's pretty weird. And then like, cool, and people would sort of turn up like at gigs wearing t-shirts they'd made themselves with it on, and you're like, okay, damn,
man.
that's crazy.
That too, I remember you
Yeah.
putting photos up of that on MySpace
Yeah.
of people that just like,
It really blew us away, man, and it went way further, like eventually, because we tried really hard not to deviate too much from the branding, mainly because it was working and we didn't have any idea what to change it to. And then we started doing the Night of Fabric called Jackbeats Loves, and then the idea was like, whoever's on the lineup.
oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Damn,
and I was like, well, I'll do like a Dripping Heart to basically put on the flyer, just in the same theme, and that was fine. And then we eventually did like a sort of album project, which came out split into 2 sort of extended EPs in the end, and the graphics for that were like basically like a neon heart.
That's the one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that went like, it just went. It's really odd. People started turning up with it tattooed on them big.
Yeah,
Like,
dude.
and it got really weird, and like, it's like it landed up on like Pinterest or something, and it's like it went viral. Like, nothing to do us. Like, all those people that have that don't know anything to do us. Like, it landed up. There was some Prince tribute last year. I can't remember who it was. Someone really famous in the background. It was there, a big purple one. I'm like, I don't care. Like, big up. But it's, you know, and no one knows. No one cares. And I don't. But it's just like, it's just really interesting. It's like Dripping Heart's not like a new thing, but you know it's the one you did, especially when it's been made out of a neon tube and you can see it.
Yeah. Oh, that is amazing.
But it's again, man. It's like
acclaim, man.
It's not like, the reason that I can talk about it like this is not because I was clever enough to come up with it. It's because it was like an organic progression that people decided was right for that. Their choice, you know. Like, we didn't mastermind it to do that, and I think Ben and I both were like really taken and flattered by that. And I think at points with these things, man, you just have to hold out your hands and be like, if
this
someone
is a
was
cultural
like,
thing. This
yeah,
is something that is
like,
out of our hands.
if someone came to me and were like, can you do that for me? I'd be like, absolutely can't. I cannot. I don't know why it worked.
Yeah, that's right.
Trust me, if I do another one,
It
probably
just
won't
looks
work.
so natural. It looks like it was always there.
Yeah.
And you can't really. I mean, it happens in songs sometimes. It becomes such an ingrained part of society and life, and it's there. I know. It's weird when you do see it.
It's weird little things like that.
Yeah.
Man. But I mean, it's a small part of it. But it sort of sums up, I think, Jackbeats as a whole thing. The MySpace phenomenon thing at the time was similar, and we were by no means like an exception. There was a lot of people in that position. MySpace became this platform, so we were sort of I'd say second tier. There was like some people were really going stratospheric, like, you know, good friends like James who does it at Venue.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
those guys were like getting like major label record deals. And
well, you had that as well. I mean, there's a bunch still going, a bunch of acclaims that are attached to Jackbeats. There's obviously the more recent night-based stuff, which I personally play that.
Yeah.
You know me. I'm
Yeah.
not like Uber on my house thing. I'm, you know, I check a few things. I know a few people, but I'm not like Uber on it. That resonates with me. But also, you did albums.
Yeah.
You've done EPs. You've done stuff on through Skrillex. Am I right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
We
worked with Diplo as well.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Worked with Diplo. Like worked on some major laser bits right at the beginning. I don't even know if he used them, to be honest. You never really know if Wes, but
Yeah.
we've been in the studio with him a fair bit, man.
Yeah,
Done
yeah.
a few things, and like, again, just all timing, just and like-mindedness, similar background, especially with Diplo. We all grew up on the same stuff, so
Yeah, that's right. He definitely.
yeah.
He's a magpie of sorts. You know, I've got a lot of respect for him.
He turned up at like the Scratch Perverts beatdown. Well, maybe it was only once actually, but he turned up one time and like brought like Maya with him, and like I think at the end he was classic him. He was still drinking at the time. Like he landed up. Tony had like a suite back at the Great Eastern Hotel. He went back there and Diplo was already in there with about 60 people having a party. I think Tony probably fell in love with him at that point.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I mean, when I think about
Yeah.
a party in Diplo and Tony Vegas in a room together, I mean, that's the start of a sketch in itself.
I know,
you know?
man. It's funny. So yeah, I mean, yeah. And then like Skrillex, the same thing, man. I remember there's these events called Hard in the States, which are still going. But at the time were like they were a few years in when we started to do them, and they were sort of expanding. And we did one at the Shrine. And
that place is awesome.
it was cool. We were in the inside bit, and we played. I mean, I get it a bit more now. We played against Boys Noise, we were put at the end, and there was like everyone was playing that night. Like this again, going to contextualize it a bit. It's like if you go back, it's like I can't remember exactly who was on the flyer, but it was like us and like Calvin Harris and Errol Alkin, and like no one was like, you know, Errol was probably like a lot bigger than Calvin was at the time, you know. It's like it was a different period, you know.
Were they kind of battling each other in a kind of in a sound system sense?
No, not really. It was just two rooms. That was the thing. So we were like Boys Noise, like sort of by that point was like a kind of god, electro god, as he still is.
German
but
cat, right?
Yeah. And like we didn't know him personally. He's like nicest dude, but like we were just like, oh man, like we've got the same set time, and I actually just saw it as being like they put on like us because like he's massive, so like just stick on these London guys at the end. Does no one care? And the room stayed packed, and partly that is like the fact that there's, you know, LA was sort of ticking on a bit of a different clock, so there was people that are into electro and people that are into like this weirder bass stuff at the time. And there was also there's enough people there to fill both rooms, and it was going to be a bit like that. But we were really blown away, and I remember seeing this dude in the pics. You're sort of taking it in, like trying to like be like, man, this biggest room we probably ever played at the time, especially with Jackbeats. And it was like we were like, I think just, you know, loving it and being in the moment, and also trying to just get to the end of the set so you could sort of
decompress.
Like, yeah, exactly. Please, let's not fuck up.
Yeah.
Let's not fuck up.
Yeah.
And there's like a pit. It wasn't like crazy production like you get now, but we were like up a couple of stories probably in height on this podium thing they built. And in the pit is like a few like journalists and stuff. And there's this dude. I'm like sort of seeing him. He's quite distinctive looking, and he's got these big glasses on, this like hairdo. And on the way down to the gig, we'd been with Kill the Noise, who at the time had just moved to like LA, was just sort of.
That's right.
Kind of, he'd been releasing on Fool's Gold, and I think he was making that move to sort of try and kind of get his career a bit more off the ground, which obviously, if you know where he went after that, he's incredibly successful.
Dude,
I mean,
tech crazy, man.
Ridiculously talented guy, yeah. Like, and bless him, like he was a friend of Ben's. Ben had been touring out doing Jackbeat stuff before we went there together, and then we started to do it together that year, and he picked us up at the airport. It's just like this like sweet kid. Like, well, kid, the same age as me, but like, you know, like sweet man. Anyway, like, and he was just like, you know, we were like rolling together, and like we were discussing like this guy Skrillex just released this album, and it's like number 1 to 10 on Beatport. All the top tracks were like from this album. We were like, how's that happen? Like, in the classic music biz way as well. Everyone was like kind of cagey about it. Like,
Yeah, of course.
they were kind of like
Sniffing the scent.
I think everyone was like, I think I like it. It sounds really different, but is something going on here? Like, and you couldn't really fathom.
Cynicism kicks in, and the
I tell you,
competitiveness.
I don't think anyone would mind me saying that. And it's like, you know, we're all highly respectful of it, but also I think just genuinely confused. And obviously, a few months after that, once you sort of really saw what was going on with the Skrillex like phenomenon, you realized that it was like this massive
juggernaut,
like massive moment where music was changing and people wanted what he was doing, and he was the vehicle. But it was all happening that night. We kind of go out, like we finished the show and we're coming out, and Ben's like, "Oh, have you met this guy?" Like, and it's the guy, it's the journalist with the glasses and the hair, and I'm like, "Oh, hey man, nice to meet you." And Ben's like, "Oh, it's Skrillex." I was like, "Oh,
shit,
dude, had been there like the whole time," and I was like, "You're that dude that we've just been like trying to get our heads around," and like he's like the nicest guy you'll ever meet, and we were all just like, damn, this is like the craziest night. Our brains just like melting, like trying to make sense. And we just sort of stayed friends. And Benny would hang out in LA a lot. He would see those guys, and then we toured with him quite a bit. Just like it made sense musically. The sort of the kind of stars aligned. We'd released most of our music from sort of 2012 onwards with Ausla, their label.
That's the one.
Until a couple of years back, really. And yeah, it was good times, man.
He's still doing his thing, you know.
Yeah,
I met him once actually.
Yeah, he's killing it, man. Like it's on some whole different pop level now, but
yeah. And richly deserved, man.
Yeah,
like,
man.
All you guys actually, you know, of that fraternity in that at that time, you've all kind of like really, you've contributed to a bigger thing, and the cream has just risen. You know, I mean, there's some people that you don't hear of so much, but I'm sure in the grander scheme of things that they're still doing things in like you now are moving on into more independent house music and getting back to your hip hop roots.
Yeah.
And doing more stuff. It's like, again, it's just contributing to a bigger thing and adding value to your own repertoire and your history. And that's the coolest. You can't ask for anything more. If everything switches off tomorrow, at least you can. Yeah. You know, that's something to hold, you know?
I think so, man. Like, I think I see it the same way. And it's like, I think as well as you get older, like, you know, you can be, I don't think I'll ever stop being that sort of fairly overly ambitious, semi-pain in the ass kind of kid that I probably always was. You can disguise it. Deep down you are. I think anyone that's worked with me probably has moments of love and equal pain. But it's like...
We know you're very clinical with your... I mean, that's one thing that I've always taken from your production. It don't go out until it's at 100.
It has to be 100, like, for me. Like, and it doesn't have to be 100 for, like, the best thing in the world, but it's got to be as good as I can get it.
Yes,
do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think also, like, you know, as you get older, you start to realize, you know, your lane, you know, like, everyone's kind of got one to a degree. You can definitely shift them, and reinvention's a huge part of staying in music, and I understand that. And subtly, I think we all do that, even if we don't realize it, if we stay in this job. But I also, like, I think, you know, as you do hit, I'm like 37 now, so it's like my goals are going to be slightly different, and it's about accepting that and working out how, you know, the next moves, like you say, like getting back into touch with some of your roots maybe, or like if, you know, I'm starting a new project, like I wanted to do a solo project, I think before, oh God, I hate to say it, before I'm too old, you know, in a way, because a solo project probably will have a footing in club music to a degree. And whether that really comes to fruition or not, like as a club thing, I don't know, but I needed to do it now, you know? And it's like, right. And like you say, it'll be more based around house music with my take on it and my roots. But it's like, but again, you know, equally a couple of years ago, the logical progression probably, especially being in LA all the time and doing all that stuff. And, you know, if you know anything about people like Diplo and those guys who were there, like could have probably tried to follow on in their footsteps a little bit. The doors were probably open for that more than we walked through them, you know what I mean? And I think you do that because at a point you're like, you've got to be a certain type of person. And you know, like when you know those people personally, and it's not a certain type of person saying a bad person or anything like that, it's more about like to be a pop producer and those sort of things, it's not just about sit in front of an MPC. It's about a whole load of other stuff.
Yeah,
and I was
that's
like,
right.
you know, like I don't know if like that would be something I would really actually at the end of the day really like enjoy that much. So I kind of I think in real terms you learn those things as you get older, and if you can learn them and react to them and work with them, that's when it stays fun.
Because they become tools for yourself.
Yeah.
And what you're getting at, which I can totally appreciate, is you're doing things at 37 to make your 40-year-old proud.
Yeah. Do you know what, man? That's an amazing way of putting it, man.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're just doing it because you're like, right, okay.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a better time to do it. You're out of, you're out of your comfort zone, and you want to move forward in the best productive way.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
now you just got to get up and go.
You
and
do
it,
man. And you know what? Like, music doesn't have to stop at any age. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I get that. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, it is. You know, it's just. I think at certain points you just have to jump off the cliff and see when the parachute opens, man. You know, if it doesn't, then it doesn't. But you need to learn that if it doesn't, then that's a sign too, and just to be okay with it. I mean, it's hard. Music's brilliant in these sort of situations where you're sitting talking about like 20 odd years of history, when especially with me and you, we know each other so well, so you can ask all the questions.
That's
like,
right.
and get me like rabbiting on as I am here.
That's
it's
awesome. Like, hey, come on.
It's like, you know, it definitely skirts over like, if you took it on a day-to-day basis, all like, you know, the graph of where you were like, yeah, it's working, to where the
DJ,
am I going
totally.
to that? You know, it's like it makes it sound really like, oh, I did this, I did that. It's like, in between times it was like,
DJ.
Yeah, totally.
A lot of hair
The
pulling.
day-to-day living totally outweighs the acclaim, doesn't it? It's like just going through the motions is sometimes it's like,
man. And all that shit about learning what you should and shouldn't do, you tend to learn that through like the pain of doing something for like a couple of years. Be like, man, it's not really for me.
Yeah, that was a big shit.
Yeah. That's it. So I don't know. Probably should add that.
But it goes like that. You know, when you think about the mistakes, it just all adds up as being a productive, positive thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, man. Of course,
Yeah.
it's all part of it, man. And it's like, I don't know. It's really like, I think it's just like humbling, man. At the end of the day, like to be able to do something that you love and keep doing it. And, you know, through the highs and the lows, you can sort of, I think, put up with it. Yeah. And then it puts up with you, you know?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
It's quite weird.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a push and pull.
Yeah.
So on moving forward, you've got a bunch of projects coming along that you're at the moment is kindling. They're in the making.
I've got one like serious one, which is like me making music, which I think will be ready next year. Awesome. This year is about refining that and making it.
Is it a project name? Not yet. Too early.
It's too early, just in case I change it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think I'm getting it's getting quite refined now.
Good.
So I'm kind of, you know, and like you say, man, it's like I only want it to come out the door when it's like it's ready and it's making sense. And then there's a few sort of off shots of that potentially as well. So I think just like trying to let it happen organically, and just it's quite weird being after working with groups for so long to spend so much time back on your own, you know. It's again, that's another one where it's like some days it's, you know, having solitude in creation can be an amazing thing, and other times it's hard.
Yeah, of course.
You know, I mean, sure, you must know that, man. You know, you've
totally.
been a solo artist for so many years. So.
Man, I mean, you know, I've obviously had other projects, but with doing it on your own, one thing it does give you is freedom of choice. And you're not answerable. You know, it's like to anybody. This is okay. I'm doing this. Yeah, and it's down to your tenacity. Yeah, and you keep up to, you know. There's some days when things don't fall into plan the way you want them to. Yeah. But, you know, that's fucking life. You know, you just keep it moving.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. Time is, it's like what Drake said, you know, I couldn't do it any quicker. You know, you know, it couldn't have happened any quicker. Yeah, that's it. Keep it moving. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, man, that sort of sums up deciding to do something on my own at this point, because I learned a lot about engineering music over the last, you know, over a long period of time, and very quietly I've sort of succeeded in being, I think probably for myself, I can engineer music like about the standard that I could probably call up someone and do it for me. I've sat in
rooms when I was younger and be like, I want it to sound like this, I want it to sound like that. And that does work and it doesn't work, you know, but it's a very long process.
Yeah.
And you know, and now I feel like, you know, I'd mixed down a lot of records and remixes like for the Jackbeats thing, especially when we were doing so much at one point. And you get better at it, and then you get to know your sound and what you like to do, and it's like all those things, man. Like they've taken me a long time, you know, learning music and understand what I really want, and then understanding what you want to sound like and what you want to be taken as, so you can stand there and be like, well, if you don't like it, it's cool, you know. Whereas when you're doing like stuff that's not necessarily to do your heart, you've kind of put yourself out there in a way where you're like, oh man, like I don't know if I like this, I'm not sure if it's good. I don't want,
and it's already out there, and you're like,
I want to be at a place where I can be kind of at peace with all those elements and feel like, yeah, it's good. And that's something that I think at this stage I couldn't have done it before now. Do you know what I mean? So you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
it's a little late out the gate, but yeah,
no,
why not?
man, not at all. I mean, you know, it's what's important is that you do 10,000 hours.
Yeah,
you know, you show up.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Yeah,
it's like you got to just keep it moving. And, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you know, because I'm no mix engineer, but there is a level of zen where once you find your sound, it's like a level of meditation.
Yeah,
you need that time.
Yeah,
you need to have the space and the solitude to get under the hood of what you're doing. You know,
it's quite a sort of, you know, I think engineering really is like quite a solitary process, you know, and then you have external voices within that you probably need to say whether you're right or wrong sometimes. Not everyone needs that, but you know, a lot of the best engineers have a ton of assistants helping out, you know, but it's realist form. Yeah, I think you're right, man. It's, you sort of get lost in it and
find your way out in the rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's a funny one, engineering. I love it. It's a sort of it's an exercise, engineering. It's not always the most creative thing, and then sometimes you can turn the most mundane track into the most creative thing. You know, I don't know if that makes sense, but it's not linear. Whereas you know, if you eventually hone a sound with a project and you're kind of sticking to that sound, that can become quite linear. So engineering it's given me sort of freedom at points, and then other times it can be a real bit.
But it's an art, man, honestly.
Yeah.
And your skill sets are up, man. And lastly, because you did mention this hip hop thing you've got going on, so you're currently collecting some of the most rarest hip hop tunes out there.
It's a bit of a weird one, man, because we grew up like, you know,
you're going back to the original
like
place.
like teenagers in the 90s. So it's like, you know, when people talk about golden era hip hop, it's like, not only were we there for that, but I think, like, I'm sure you must have been the same, man. Like, when you're like 12, 13 years old, you're like hyper impressionable. I was like 12 when the Wu-Tang album came out. I remember like the day someone told me about it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sitting there like, oh my God, like I was like, what the hell is this nonsense?
Yeah,
Do you know what I
man.
mean? And then I listened to it and I was like, I actually quite like this. I wasn't even a mad hip hop kid at the time. I had listened to hip hop like earlier, like, because I used to get like mixtapes off my uncle, and there's like I Know You Got Soul by Eric B. and Rakim was on there. I only figured that out later. But I used to listen to that. I used to like it, you know, as a kid.
Yeah, I get you.
You know, but I was like 7 or 8 years old. It's like, it's different. You know, you can't really sit there and be like, yeah, I was listening to like Eric B. Like,
totally. There's a lot of going back and researching.
It's not like front, like sort of, you know.
Exactly. We were there.
Yeah, you know, it wasn't really like that. You know, it's not like, you know, my dad wasn't DJ Premier. You know what I mean? It's like, come on. So it's like, you know, it's like, yeah, I don't know, man. But yeah, at that age, like 12, 13 was a perfect time, you know, and then albums just started to come out. So you were like, oh man, like it'd be like Illmatic or like Ready to Die, you know.
Yeah.
And when you look at the history of these things, it's like, man, they were like coming out on, some of them were like on the same day. You know, it's insane. Like that period was really, really quite short. Where it really, I think there's that sort of 7 years of like 90 to 97 people quite often talk about.
That's right, yeah.
And I'd say if you focus that right into about 93 to 95, a lot of the really, maybe, I don't know, I mean, people are going to argue that one, but just say like, if you really condense it, I'd say a lot of the really heavy hitters came out in a really short period.
Absolutely.
And that was just like, my brain was just, it was ready to be like, you know, some cult came along, took me over. And like hip hop, you know? And it's odd, man, because I did step away from it, and I didn't get bored of it. I lost love for it at points, and then regained it at points over the years. But that era was always special to me. And like, I just, about 2 years ago was like, man, I got all my records together, like when me and my wife like settled down, finally got all my records out of storage and put them in the house. And, you know, from living with other DJs and stuff, being on the road, you know, some records you think you've got are probably sitting in your mate's collection, or, you know, or like you going through them like, oh, actually, that belongs to Tony, like, you know, giving him records back, stuff. You know, it's like, you know, it's just what happens. And I was like, oh, there is quite a few things that I want that I don't have. Like, I need to fill those gaps. And you start going on Discogs and doing that sort of thing. And I was like, oh, you know, I'm going to go back to some of the stores and pick stuff up. And like, it just very slowly started to become a bit of a hobby again, going to record shops. And I was on
rarities, you mean?
Yeah, because I had mostly everything. But it would be like, oh, there's this album or that album. And it would be like, me and Benny were on tour, like in the States. Like, I basically spent most of the last like 5-6 years basically either being on tour in the States there, or like coming back and having family time here. So like, we were on the road like always. And I was like, there's got to be some, like, it would be in like Seattle. I'll be like, there must be a record store here or something, or maybe there would be, maybe there won't be. And then, you know, going through that process a few times over a few years, you start to know where there's some good stores. You just be like, oh man, I've got a couple hours, I'm gonna go check out.
Yeah, quickly.
And you don't be like, you know, it's not like crazy like digging would come out with like masses of change. Just like one or two bits you've forgotten. Then you start filling the gaps, and then you're like, wait, you know, like, internet's amazing thing. Would be different sites you're on suggesting things, or like other threads, or, you know, you're on YouTube listening to a track and you're like, there's suggestions down the thing from some like guy that's uploading. You're like, what? What's that tune with that guy on? I didn't know that. Like, checking it, and then you're like, wait, like, I should check this guy's channel. Like, he's some like crazy like digger or something, and you're finding like mad rare like tracks from that era, which maybe, you know, came out in really limited quantities, maybe like a dude from Boston or a dude from like wherever, and you're like, oh man, like, I need to get these. And then you're like, then you're back on Discogs looking for them. You're like, oh wow, like, last sold for like sort of $870, and you're like, eh?
Even now that price.
Yeah, for like, for serious rare stuff. But I think it's almost more into, those things are like a whole different sort of kettle of fish. It's a bit like, I don't know, it's a bit more like, say, like going into the dub reggae world, where you've got like, might not be the best dub track you've ever heard, but like, that dude has this lineage and there was 200 of them, and if you want it, it's like, you know, that type of sevens can go for like stupid cash. So there's
I get you.
There's an economy within that, where
it's a culture.
The culture and the underground could make some people want to pay that time. I don't. Yeah, but it's interesting, man.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of pays to fly to Japan and get copies. More cheaply. I guess,
yeah. There's still like mad record stores there, like selling mad tunes. But, you know, I don't know, man. So it's interesting of what to do with
these rarities,
the tunes and stuff that I've managed to come across. I don't really know yet.
I think it's a burgeoning like podcast in the making.
It could be, man. Watch the space.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, listen, I won't keep any more because I know you're a very busy man. But my boy, DJ +1, Jackbeats, all area crew. You know what he's doing. You've heard him talk. Nice.
Big up, man. Thanks.
Big up, Neil. Killa Cow podcast. See you in the next one.
Nice one, man. Wicked.
Dude.
Wicked. That was sick.